It's not the complete end of the world that the Boston Red Sox missed out on Juan Soto. I'll lay out a roadmap for future success on today's Locked on Red Sox.
You are Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it's all completely free. So make sure that you start your day off the right way by tuning in to this exact show. Also, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, I told you on this show earlier this week that Juan Soto's decision was going to be coming in the next week. And here we are. And what a big day yesterday in the baseball world as Juan Soto agreed to a 15-year, $765 million contract with the New York Mets. I mean, talk about a payday. Now, nobody should be surprised at the fact that he is getting as much as he is. I mean, let's just face it, the market is what it is these days, and players are just making more. And we might think it's an overpay in a lot of cases, but the reality of the situation is it's not. Because relative to where the market is at right now, that's just what players are getting, and you have to be willing to open the checkbook a little bit more if you want to get the best players. And that's exactly what Steve Cohen did here. And landed the best player on the free agent market, $765 million. Crazy. Over 15 years. And he can opt out after the fifth year, which will be 2029. That's part of the contract. Or he can receive a $4 million raise per season from $51 million to $55 million after that for the remainder of the contract. So basically, the Mets can override the opt-out if they increase his salary by that extra $4 million per season. So technically, it could go over $800 million at the end of the day, which is absolutely insane. But Steve Cohen, richest owner in the sport, I knew he wasn't going to be backing down and ultimately would not be outbid financially. So here's the thing. The Red Sox were very much in the running for Soto for a while. They, until the very end, were a team that was being considered by Soto and Boris. And when you look back at this offseason so far and all the rumblings and rumors, it's easy to feel like, okay, we got completely misled. The Red Sox obviously were not a team that he was interested in. He wanted to stay in New York the whole time. While that could be true, that's not the case from what I had heard around the industry, is that he genuinely was impressed with the Red Sox farm system and their plan for winning in the future. And he liked the idea of that sustained success that the Red Sox were working towards. And the Red Sox final offer to Soto ended up being 15 years in the $700 million range. So yes, they were a little bit off of what Cohen offered, but honestly, you can't really be mad at the Red Sox for that. It's not like they didn't go out there and put their best foot forward to go and try to sign Juan Soto. They really did do what they could. And the fact that John Henry went out there and was willing to pay that much for Soto is really telling and indicative of the fact that they are ready to be back to being a team that's willing to spend money on big players. So ultimately, when it comes down to Juan Soto's contract, I'm not mad at Craig Breslow and John Henry because it's not like they didn't try and give their best effort. Now, if they came back and said the Red Sox offered $600 million and didn't up their offer after that, then I would be pretty mad, because that is what they originally came out with, and they had an agreement in blueprint. But again, obviously nothing verbal is official until it's pen to paper. And then Steve Cohen just continued to up his offer. So it forced the Red Sox to up their offer. And then we landed at the $700 million. So you really can't be mad that Soto was chasing money and he wanted to get paid, and Steve Cohen was clearly not being outbid from a financial standpoint. So here we are, and he's a Met. And if I'm the Red Sox now, I'm immediately pivoting to other options, because what's next here now that they missed out on Juan Soto? There is a light at the end of the tunnel here. Say they had signed Juan Soto, he decided to come to Boston, they committed for 15 years, $700 million. Then it would have been a little bit harder for them to address as effectively the other holes in the roster, because yes, Juan Soto is the best player that was on the market. You obviously want to get Soto if there's a chance for you to get him. But with what the Red Sox are looking to do in 2025 and where they're at right now, they need to make other big moves. And by missing out on Soto, this allows them to better delegate their money elsewhere a little bit more to address other areas of need on the roster. For example, starting pitching, something that I've talked about all offseason long so far. The Red Sox need it. And by missing out on Soto, they now have the opportunity to go out and offer a lot of money to Max Fried or Corbin Burns, or preferably both, because now they're in a situation where they're not spending that money on Soto. So they can say, okay, we can still dish out a lot of money, but now we can focus it in an area that this team really, really needs. So I expect the Red Sox to pivot towards heavily pursuing Corbin Burns and Max Fried, because I had talked about different scenarios on the show last week about what would happen with the pitching situation and how they would address that if they landed Juan Soto, and also how they would address it if they missed out on him. And now that they missed out on him, I think they'd be more willing to extend a big offer to a free agent starter like Burns or Fried. Whereas if they had landed Soto and they were dishing out all this money on him, I think we would have more likely seen a true frontline starting pitcher acquired via trade. So that all being said, the Red Sox still need to address their starting pitching and their bullpen, and they also need a right-handed bat. And with the bullpen, yes, it is a little bit improved with the recent signing of Aroldis Chapman, but they still could use another arm or two to come out of the bullpen and eliminate some of the guys who struggled last year, like Josh Winkowski and Zach Kelly. You could get a couple arms to replace them that would be a better option for the pen. But now they should focus heavily on trying to pursue Teoscar Hernandez. I wanted him last offseason, and I still want the guy now. He's a right-handed power hitter who would absolutely thrive at Fenway and has put up really good career numbers at Fenway Park. And he shows up in the postseason. Look at his performance in that World Series for the Dodgers. He loves the spotlight and he loves playing October baseball. But the problem is the Dodgers really want him back, and he sounds like he does prefer to stay there. So it's going to take the Red Sox offering him a lot of money and also giving him a very, very powerful, convincing speech to get him to sign with the Red Sox. Because what reason would he have to leave a team that just won the World Series? The biggest reason the Red Sox could say is, we'll offer you a lot more money than what they're willing to give. But then they actually have to follow through with that and make an offer that's a lot more than what the Dodgers are going to make. So if they can address their right-handed bat situation and the hole there, especially with Tyler O'Neill no longer being available, and they come out and get Teoscar Hernandez to add to the lineup, that's a big improvement that you can add to that middle of the lineup, right behind Devers or even right in front of Devers in the lineup, based on who else they have and where you want to put in. But he's a guy who you know is going to show up. So I would love to see him in a Red Sox uniform. So I think that's a player the Red Sox need to heavily focus on pivoting to now that they missed out on Soto. And then you go to the starting pitching, and it would be in their best interest to have serious conversations with Burns and Fried, because the extent of the conversations with those two I'm hearing when it comes to the Red Sox haven't been too deep yet. and there are other teams expected to be in on these guys as well. So now's the time to amp up those conversations with those two free agent starters in Fried and Burns, now that they know what the results of Juan Soto's free agency situation is and they know where they stand. Now they have to go out there and heavily try to pursue those guys, try to get at least one of them to come to Boston. I would love both, but even if they just get one, that would be a big improvement to the rotation. So got to up the urgency there and talking to those guys. The Yankees are also expected to be involved with them and also with Teoscar Hernandez. And that's the challenging thing with Teoscar is a lot of teams who missed out on Soto are going to want to go after him. So the Red Sox have to up their game now. This offseason has just become even more serious than it already was because they already missed out on Soto. So other teams who also did are going to be pursuing similar players to who the Red Sox pursued. So can't be messing around anymore and got to go and try to work out deals with the best players out there. And speaking of players and the Red Sox roster and the unknowns, what is the catching situation going to be for 2025? That is coming up next. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide during the cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply. I love steak. It's literally my favorite thing, and I've been shopping at Omaha Steaks for a long time, so it's not hard for me to convince you that it's the best, but I am serious. It's the best. Such fresh steak, and they make it how you want it. Their medium is legitimately medium as opposed to more of medium rare or medium well. You never really know. They legitimately make it in the best way. So if you say you want medium, you will 100% get medium. So definitely take advantage of that deal today and do your next meat shopping at Omaha Steaks. Maybe for the holidays coming up here in your gatherings, you can use it. The Boston Red Sox have missed out on star free agent Juan Soto. Why is that not the end of the world? Because they have other areas of the roster that they need to improve also, and this allows them a little bit more flexibility to be able to delegate their money elsewhere because they don't have Soto. Is it a bummer? Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't want the best player on the market? I would die to have Juan Soto in a Boston Red Sox uniform. But at the end of the day, it didn't happen. He's a Met. And also 15 years, if you think about it, even if he did come to the Red Sox, 15 years is a long time. He'll literally be 41 when the time that contract ends. 41. They're not going to get productivity from him in the last few years of that contract. So in a way, it's kind of a relief that the Red Sox didn't have to commit to that long because he went elsewhere. But also, obviously, it's a bummer because there's no doubt about it that his bat would be a serious upgrade for the Boston Red Sox. But in other news, too, the Red Sox backup catcher from 2024 in Danny Jansen agreed to a one-year deal with the Rays recently. $8 million for 2025 plus a $500,000 buyout on a 2026 mutual option. So for him, that $500K buyout will be picked up if the mutual option is declined. Good luck to the Rays because he'll have to significantly rebound from his numbers a year ago. 206 batting average, 308 on base percentage, and 348 slugging in 328 plate appearances. But he'll hopefully perform better than he did in Boston, except not against us because I don't want him to come out and destroy the Red Sox. But with Jansen now going elsewhere, that does pose a question about the Red Sox current catching situation and what that looks like, because now they have a catching vacancy to pair with Connor Wong. And the question becomes, do they feel like Kyle Teel is more ready for the big leagues than we think? Or are they planning to bring in somebody else? In 2024, he made his way very quickly through the system. He started the season with the Portland Sea Dogs and then ended up getting his call up to Worcester in August. And generally speaking, since Kyle Teel was drafted, it has not taken him long at all to get through the Red Sox season. So he was batting in AAA for those last couple months of the year. And in total, he batted 285 on the season with a 385 on base percentage and 432 slugging, along with an 816 OPS. So the thing to keep in mind here with him is, do the Red Sox feel like it's been enough time for him to have been in AAA? Because he was only there for a couple months of the season. So it feels to me like if they were to call him up to the majors to start the season, that it would be kind of rushed. It would come across like the Red Sox are doing it because they're desperate, because they need another catcher on the roster. So they're forcing Teel to get called up. And I absolutely do not want the Red Sox to throw off his development. As excited as I am about Kyle Teel being in the Red Sox system, I don't want to see them end up in a place where they prematurely call him up and he doesn't perform well because he's not ready, and then it destroys his confidence and the Red Sox don't get the best version of Teel that they can possibly get. I also think with his physique, he does need to build out a little bit more before coming up to the majors. So he needs, to me, more time in AAA. But again, I am not in the dugout with the team 24/7 to be able to see behind the scenes the improvement that he's made. And obviously he's capable of continuing to develop because of his ability to maneuver his way through the Red Sox system so quickly. But it gets to the point where there is a big difference and a big leap, because you're going from level to level in the minors, and that to some players doesn't really feel like it's this big leap because there's not a whole lot of pressure on them and not as many eyes on them in general, whatever level of the minors that you're at. But that leap from AAA to the majors can be really scary sometimes for a player, because there are so many more people keeping an eye on them and relying on them to perform well constantly. And you are helping to set the precedent for what that organization is. And with Kyle Teel in particular, because he's such a highly regarded prospect and he's also a catcher, and the Red Sox don't really have a crazy amount of catching talent, there have been a lot of eyes on him already when he was in the minors, but it won't be to the extent that it is in the majors. It's just not the same. There is just such a higher level of competition in the majors. So we can never guarantee that a player is going to transition seamlessly from the minors to the majors. So that would be one thing I'd be worried about, is if the Red Sox call him up now, is he going to be able to handle the pressure that comes with being in the majors? But when it comes to development in the minors, AA is a level in which you really see a lot of what players are going to be. That's the level in which they either come across like they're going to pan out or not. And he's somebody who did well in AA. So that's super promising for his future and his ability, is that he definitely could be a player that goes really far with the Red Sox and is able to contribute a lot. But I still don't think them calling him up now makes sense. I think it would be a little premature still. And I do anticipate that they won't have him start the season with the major league team. I expect that they might sign a veteran catcher on a cheaper 1-year deal, somebody who's on the older side that isn't going to be super expensive because they know that it's temporary. Kind of like when they traded for Danny Jansen and we all knew that it was likely a rental. I figured there was a chance they might re-sign him for 2025 just for the sake of having a backup to Wong until Teel is ready. But because he went elsewhere, they can sign somebody else to take Danny Jansen's place, who is a low-cost catcher who will be okay with taking a one-year deal, because I don't think they need more than a one-year deal with this catcher because of the fact that Teel, I wouldn't be surprised if is ready to come up at some point during the 2025 season. I don't, again, think it'll be at the beginning, but maybe at some point during the season, he gets called up. So then that catcher is no longer needed and maybe they DFA him. But to start the season, they need a backup catcher. But as long as Kyle Teel stays healthy, I don't see him needing past the 2025 season in AAA. He's putting up good numbers offensively and he has speed. And his defense as a catcher was the biggest attractive factor for him that made the Red Sox sign him and decide, okay, we're going to draft this stud. So when it comes to taking everything into account here, I think the Red Sox start the season with Connor Wong and a mystery catcher, a catcher who's not expensive, that is available for a cheaper deal to basically help fill that void until Teel is ready to come up. And then when Teel is ready to come up, if it's partway through the season, then they say bye-bye to that catcher or send them to AAA just so that they're still on standby in case one of their catchers in Wong or Teel was to get injured, that they would still want to have somebody around. But that catcher, if they bring somebody in, I don't anticipate it being somebody who is going to be here for a long time just because of the talent level that they already have. Now, Connor Wong also needs to have a better season in this upcoming year because he started off really strong and had a good first half, but then in the second half, things kind of went downhill for him in terms of his offensive numbers, and he seemingly came back down to earth a little bit and wasn't performing at as high of a level as he was in that first half of the season. So we need to see more of the first half Connor Wong going into 2025 because let's face it, the catching situation right now with Connor Wong as the number one is not ideal. And again, Kyle Teel will be coming up eventually, but we do need Wong to get his numbers up a little bit, especially if he's going to be the number one catcher for the whole season because Teel won't be ready yet. We definitely need him to step it up a little bit compared to what he did in 2024. So hopefully he's able to do that and he's able to work through some things during spring training to keep him consistent and keep him hitting at a high level because his catching is poor. He was one of the weakest defensive catchers behind the plate this past season. So I'm not really counting his defense as a factor that can help the Red Sox in a positive way. But if he can get his offensive numbers up a little bit, then we can feel better about him being the option, at least until Kyle Teel is ready. So we'll have to see what happens with it, but I'm not anticipating that they'll commit to another catcher for long term that is a veteran or anything crazy like that. I just don't think it makes sense for the Red Sox. But what does make sense for the Red Sox? Really going for it this offseason because they are in a wide open American League. So I'm going to be talking about that next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. FanDuel is a great way to win lots of money if you're into both sports and betting, or even if you're not into betting yet, but you want to get into it. FanDuel provides a great platform for beginners and experts when it comes to being involved, and there are tons of ways to win lots of money because you can bet on a lot of different sports on a day-to-day basis, and you could have all these parlays out there, and some of those parlays could change your life one day. So if you want to win lots of money, make sure that you check that out. The Red Sox may have missed out on Juan Soto and they may have missed out on Blake Snell, but they're still not in a bad spot. Dominoes are going to start to fall now that Juan Soto has made his decision that he's going to the Mets. I have said for a while that this market is very much going to be determined by Juan Soto. He steers the ship here, and once he makes a decision, other free agents will sign because other teams will know how they want to proceed after that. So the Red Sox are still not in a bad spot. There are still plenty of good players out there. And when it comes down to it at the end of the day, this has to be a big offseason for the Boston Red Sox. John Henry is on the hot seat right now among the fan base and among people in Major League Baseball because he has come across the last few years like he does not want to spend a lot of money, even on the best players who could help his team do better. Now, this Juan Soto situation will gain him some trust points, I feel like, with the fan base because he showed that he was willing to dish out $700 million to sign Juan Soto. That's huge for the Red Sox because in the last few years, the Red Sox would have never even been part of a conversation for that type of player because we would just know that Henry and company weren't willing to pay that person. So it's a miracle in itself that Henry was in that conversation for so long, and the Red Sox were a team that Soto was considering. But Soto is not the end-all, be-all, as I mentioned earlier on the show, but they have to have a big offseason, especially because now more than ever, the American League is wide open. The Mets are a National League team, so the Red Sox will not have to play them that much, so they won't really be dealing with Soto regularly. And because Soto didn't stay with the Yankees or sign with the Blue Jays, he is not in the American League. And that's good news for every other American League team because if you look at the American League in 2024, the Guardians and Royals were the teams that the Yankees had to face to get to the World Series, which, come on, let's be real. Those were not as legitimate of teams, and the Yankees were far better than those teams. That's why they kind of coasted through to the World Series, and they ran into a better Dodgers team and could not get it done. But the National League is absolutely stacked with talent right now, and the AL is just not in that same spot. So this door is wide open for the Red Sox to set themselves apart as a team to beat in the AL. Now, they have to do it the right way in order to be that team and be in that conversation. Like if they go out and either trade for Garrett Crochet or sign Corbin Burns or sign Max Fried, that already puts them in a little bit more of a conversation of, okay, the Red Sox might be legitimate in 2025. Or if they go out and they get a power bat that's right-handed, like Teoscar Hernandez, like I mentioned before, then they could be a little bit more in that conversation. But if they go into 2025 with the American League being as wide open as it is, and us as fans still feeling like the Red Sox are a mediocre baseball team, that is not a good sign. That means that the Red Sox did not do their due diligence and that they didn't take complete advantage of an American League that is wide open because there is no team that is definitively better than everybody else. Now, in the National League, you obviously have the Dodgers and all those crazy contracts on the book and so much talent in that system right now that, to me, the Dodgers, who just won the World Series and they weren't even fully healthy, should be the favorite again. But in the American League, you look at the Yankees, who missed out on Juan Soto, one of the biggest reasons why they got to the World Series this past year. The Orioles, who had injuries in 2024, but have been proven playoff chokers the last couple seasons, even with the talent that they have. And they don't have a bona fide superstar on the team, really, because Gunnar Henderson, who definitely can be that, is still young and still developing. And then you have Adley Rutschman, who didn't perform in the postseason in 2024. So if the Red Sox make the appropriate moves, they could jump ahead of the Orioles. And I'm using their specific division because there's a lot of tough competition. in that division, and it's a tough one to play in. But then you also even have the Houston Astros, who had been good for so long and were making it to the ALCS every single year, that they got eliminated early in the playoffs in 2024. So it's looking like they're on the back end of that championship window with all those guys that carried them to those championships. So if you think about the other teams around the league, especially in the AL, there is room for anybody to be on top. And the Red Sox have just as much of a chance as anybody else if they make the correct moves. And that's the big thing, is if they make the correct moves, because what's going to happen if they miss out on Burns and Fried, then what do they do? Because Garrett Crochet is another option. Do they want to trade for him because he's believed to be traded by the end of the winter meetings here? So is he an option for the Red Sox? But they need to figure it out quickly, and they need to be aggressive, because fans will be so mad, which I feel is an understatement, at John Henry if he doesn't go out and do big things to improve this team, because this is the best opportunity for them to get themselves back to prominence within the American League. And if they go out and make the right moves necessary to do that, they can not only win the fan base back over, but they can also, just as an organization, feel good about themselves because they maximize the offseason. So the last thing I would want is to be sitting here waiting, and then the Red Sox don't do anything of value for the rest of this offseason, because that would just be incredibly disappointing after all the talk they've done and all the effort they put into Juan Soto. Got to go out and make some moves. What those moves are, we will see over time here, but I do appreciate you tuning in to Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. For your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who will keep you up to date with all things going on across the league. So if you're interested in hearing about this Juan Soto situation with the Mets and what's going on with everybody else and who other teams are interested in, Sully's your guy. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts right after this. As I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.